I do find that I like to give recognition to others. I don't necessarily like to be the center and taking recognition for everything that happens. I think the more credit you can give to the people who are doing the work, it's better. That's just always been my approach. It's really about everybody around me feeling good that we're winning together as a team and we're making a difference for our customers and for their customers. We help telcos and emerging enterprises monetize some of the next generation network services. If you can't monetize those premium services now that you're able to offer, it's a great experience, but you're missing a giant revenue opportunity. In the end, it's all about the people, and having those relationships solid, it feeds me, definitely.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm here today with Glo Gordon, who is the CEO of Matrixx Software. A very warm welcome, Glo.
Thank you, Hendrik. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Glo, you studied at UC Santa Barbara, and you started your career in tech in the 80s at Xerox in sales, where you stayed for almost 20 years. After that, you worked for several companies such as Oracle, SAP, Cisco, and then in 2018 you joined the board of Matrixx Software, and since 2020 you are the CEO. So tell me a bit more about Matrixx Software, about your company. What is it that your company does, and what is it that it does really, really well?
So we help telcos and emerging enterprises monetize some of the next generation network services that are coming out, and a major inflection point for us right now is 5G. So we're really excited to be in the space that we're in, and we do one thing we do very, very well, and that is to monetize these new services that are coming out. Okay,
so your customers are many of the telco companies around the world, I can imagine.
Yes.
So you know this industry very, very well. What is the pressure? What is the pressure that you see that telco companies, digital service providers are under at the moment? And how are they reinventing their business to serve better the customer or to win from the competition? What's going on in the industry?
Oh, there's a lot happening, especially with what's happening with these use cases that are now demanding, high throughput, at the edge, ultra low latency. Consumers are much more demanding now, and what we're seeing is the need for telcos to reinvent themselves and to be more agile and responsive to the market. The market pressures are increasing, and at the same time, there's a great opportunity to charge a premium for premium services that they're now able to provide with 5G. So there's a lot happening in the market, a lot of investment going on right now in order to compete well as these trends evolve.
And how is it that Matrixx Software is helping telco companies to address these challenges today?
Well, if you think about 5G and what's happening in the industry, there's a lot of spectrum that's being auctioned off. And then a telco needs to put in a new radio network, a RAN, then a core, and with these two offerings, they are now able to generate different services that are in the arena that I mentioned before: ultra low latency, high throughput. And so some of these use cases have different business models as well. So if you can't monetize those premium services now that you're able to offer, it's a great experience, but you're missing a giant revenue opportunity. So we are the monetization element of that new stack of investment that's being made in technology.
How long has Matrixx been in the business? And can you give us some numbers? And also, how do you reinvent your business again and again?
Well, so we're well established in the pre-5G arena in telco. We've been around 11 years. We're still a private company, so I'm limited in what I can actually share.
Sure.
But I'll tell you that we're doing very well. 2020 was one of the best years that we've had as a company. I think what's happened with COVID has also put additional pressure to be able to self-serve as a consumer or as an enterprise. And so being able to offer digital services without having to go to a store, being able to do things on your own, that's been something that we've seen as a trend. So now telcos are able to offer more in that way that makes them much more competitive and appealing for a consumer or an enterprise to do business with them.
Okay. We want to focus in this interview on innovation, on open innovation, which is the new way of doing innovation and in ecosystem and platforms and so on. So, and I wanted to address 3 different aspects of innovation with you. One is where we can talk about the culture and the people, one where we can talk about the process of innovation, and then let's talk about the underlying technologies that are driving this innovation. So with your experience, how do you see telco companies addressing innovation, and what do they need to do to create an open culture to allow innovation in typically pretty big organizations, right?
Yeah, well, so there are standards that are coming out for some of these technologies that we just talked about earlier. So there's the Linux Foundation, there's TIP, the 3GPP standards that are evolving, and I think being open to that, contributing to that, and also being open to a best of breed approach has been what we've seen as being super effective out there. And most of the business that we're doing today is in the best of breed arena versus trying to get everything from one vendor and sub-optimizing parts of that stack. Now you have to be able to work in an open system. So we're API driven, and that means that we have to interop with our competitors sometimes, and as well as partners. And so our customers are finding the need to be more open in how they're looking at the technology that will best suit their needs now and in the future. So that's how we've seen new trends start to emerge, specifically around 5G.
And within Matrixx itself, how do you make sure that you foster a culture for innovation? I mean, you're a technology company, so innovation is at the core, but what's the secret of software companies so that they are agile and that they are innovative?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, we are always looking at ways to reinvent ourselves and to continue to evolve with what's happening and all the trends that are out there, and being most effective in what we're doing with our investments as well. So we're finding ourselves working with partners a lot more now, more than we were 2 years ago. And, you'll see us working with even some competitors in some cases, as I mentioned, because what's really the ultimate goal is for our customers to be served well, and then their customers to have the best experience possible. And that really takes collaboration across a much broader ecosystem than traditionally probably took place in not just telco, but in other industries as well.
What's the ingredients that you are putting in the company? How do you make sure that you attract the right people and that you create the right culture within Matrixx?
So when I started last January as the CEO, we put 3 priorities in place. One is North Star, to make sure that we're focused on the right technologies and the right targets that were where we could win and compete well and serve the customer well. The second one is Raving Fans, and that is to make sure that all of our customers are referenceable, growing, renewing with us, and word of mouth is really important and as part of our business as well as renewals. And then the third is culture. And we want Matrixx to be a place where people want to work. And more than half of our new employees, and we're scaling fast, we're doubling in size this year alone, more than half of our employees are referrals from existing employees. So that's a data point that I pay attention to. The culture that we have is one that's inclusive. The more minds on our business, the better. And we're better by having healthy debates and a diverse set of perspectives. So we look for that, we foster that, and we want to continue to lean into that.
I mean, you've been around for a number of years now, so you knew how Xerox was managed back in the 80s and the 90s. If you would look back at management style and culture in technology companies back then, And if you compare that with the culture in your organization today, how does that compare?
So you're dating me, Hendrik, with all of my history here. There's definitely a culture change as you go through things like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and catering to those dynamics has been interesting to keep track of and to determine what's a really good fit coming in and how long you can expect someone to stay. So what kind of investments are you making in people, and how are you incenting them to stay, and what kind of decision are you making? What kind of decisions are you making that include their perspective, and how are you involving employees? There's so much that goes into that that's so different from when I started. But I would also tell you that I'm seeing a lot of the same people now that I've seen over the years. We're all at different stages of our careers, so you run into people at this stage of the game as well. So I think there's a lot that goes into that, Hendrik, and it is very different today than it was back then. The tools are different. We didn't even have the internet in the 80s when I was a sales rep. We didn't have that to go by. So I'm going to really date myself now by saying that, but that's just the truth. And not having an iPhone or the internet to work with, it's a completely different world today. Everything's instantaneous. And there's just so many resources at our fingertips to be smarter and move a lot faster than we used to be able to.
And so, working with these younger generations, what is it that you need to offer them? I mean, why, if there's a high potential technologist in California, why would they come and work for you?
I ask the next generation in my family those questions a lot, and I listen to them talk about their workplaces and what excites them, knowing that people don't stay in jobs for 20 years, that you're probably going to get 2-3 years out of them unless you keep them super engaged, they see a career path, and they know that you care about that for them, and that they've got to say in the business. Those are the kinds of things that it feels really important to keep the younger generation more energized and much more engaged. Because they'll move on. There's a financial element to that as well. But I think a high level of engagement is really important with that generation, any generation. But it seems more now that people are willing to move on to the next great thing. So that to me is an important aspect of it.
Let's talk a bit more about people. I mean, nowadays, especially with the COVID crisis, I mean, we can source the top talents from around the world now. The only thing that is holding us back in collaboration is the time zones a little bit. But are you recruiting worldwide now? What's your operating model for that?
Yes, COVID has definitely opened, I think, a lot of our eyes to how things can be done that maybe we wouldn't have even tested before. So necessity being the mother of invention, we are looking beyond the Bay Area, for instance, for our top talent. We make no assumptions right now about how we're going to go back to work. We're surveying our employees to see what's important to them, and we're talking to people as they join the company about what's important to them as well. So we're formulating those plans as we enter back into the workplace, but I don't think it's going to look the way it did before. And I think we now have found more tools are available to us to collaborate and be much more effective and still have some work-life balance as well. So I personally was spending 3 hours a day on the road commuting. Do I need to do that every single day, right? That's a quality of life and also an efficiency decision. So I think we're going to find out. You
can work from your house on the beach, right? That's that's quality of life, right there.
This is true. That's right. I could.
Okay. So Glo, let's talk a bit more about your clients, about the telco companies. What do you see that's happening there on the process side of innovation? How are they organizing themselves? Are they doing making incubation centers? Do you see spin-offs? Do you see joint ventures, or do you see corporate research? What's the process side, the organization side for innovation in telcos today?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see innovation centers. We see trying new things and being willing to fail fast and going out and trying to find new business models to generate some disruption in a pretty legacy market. So telco's pretty legacy, but you're seeing new players like Microsoft, Cisco, IBM showing up in this arena in a different way than they did before. Microsoft's acquisition of Affirmed and and Metaswitch and going into that private network arena is pretty interesting. Also seeing that the CIO and the network role starting to combine, so the convergence into a CTIO organization where decisions are now getting made across both network and IT has become a dynamic that plays to our advantage because we're traditionally a network player, but we are definitely in the northbound API world of BSS and customer experience, and so we're touching all kinds of that value chain back to our customer's customer. So I think there's a lot going on. It's still evolving, and we're definitely leading the way in some cases. We're learning, and we're sharing what we're learning as well. So as standards continue to evolve, we definitely have a seat at the table where we're learning and sharing in order to make sure that we're always best positioned to have that solution that's needed.
And in your view, what are some of the best examples of your clients where they're really good at innovating? Can you share some of the best practices and innovation of your clients?
I can do that without naming names because some of this is their secret sauce, right? And some have made decisions that aren't public yet because they plan to come out and disrupt the market. But I'll tell you that we are seeing different ways of thinking. We are seeing a focus on the consumer, but also now a focus on the enterprise, and B2B to X is a factor as well. So I think we're going to see some unique disruptive players coming out in the next 12 to 18 months, and they're making decisions today that we're at the table to be engaged in and winning a lot of those decisions, which is really fun right now. But I think we'll see what they're up to in another 12 to 18 months as the market gets even more interesting.
Now that's at the new player side. But let's talk about the incumbents. I mean, the big companies that are out there. Do you see a lot of innovation going on there? And do they have new ways of organizing that?
I definitely do. And, in legacy telco, and pick anyone that's been around for many, many years, they are definitely doing those things. And the CTIO role that I mentioned has become a big player in these organizations making these cross-functional decisions, involving the business a lot more than maybe I've seen in the past. So the business is influencing what they need that then technology can support versus what technology are we going to get, and then what can it do to support the business? We're seeing the inverse of that quite a bit, and use cases are becoming much, much more important in terms of the art of the possible versus trying to solve for what's here now. There are use cases that we don't even know about today that we have to be set up to support in the future. So that agility and that flexibility and that openness it's a big part of the decisions that are getting made for now, but to be very relevant in the future.
Okay, let's talk a bit about technology, about also open technology, open source technology, and so on. What are for you the most important new technologies that will change the world as we know it?
Yes, cloud has definitely come in, Kubernetes has come in, open source has come in. So I think we're starting to see those trends take hold, and seeing a telco put their important information on a public cloud, we're starting to see that happen as a trend for the first time. So we're seeing decisions made in that area. Open source cloud even, we're seeing. Matrixx can deploy really in any of those models, on-prem, in the cloud, hybrid, public, private. So we go where the customer wants to go, and we stay current on those hot technologies and try to also predict where the market's going at the same time. But I would say that getting to the cloud, being in a Kubernetes, microservices, container-based technology, those trends are definitely something that we're seeing show up more and more and more as requirements.
Yeah. Now, one of the leading players in that market is Red Hat with their technology. And Matrixx, you're a partner of Red Hat. Can you talk a little bit how you collaborate with them?
Yes, so IBM is a phenomenal partner. We are seeing some of our best performances on OpenShift. In fact, you'll see a press release coming out here shortly talking about our performance and benchmarks on OpenShift. So we're very excited about our partnership with IBM, and we're seeing joint deals together, and I think you'll see some exciting things coming from both companies here shortly.
Okay. Now let's talk about also the more network infrastructure, the fiber and the 5G and so on. Where do you see the most exciting innovations going on based on that technology?
Yes, it's the use cases that are coming out that are very demanding, and being able to offer premium services to different users, being able to offer time-bound or throughput-bound, any type of service that's going to help a customer go faster or to support a use case that maybe isn't available today. Having that dynamic agility is really where we see that going. So, I'm not sure what more to say about that other than there is a ton of money being spent in that area. It's not rip and replace money. It's actually sitting next to legacy stacks. So you're seeing cap and grow, where then you'll see a migration of devices over to a 5G new technology stack. How do we go faster without encumbering ourselves with legacy is part of the puzzle that we're all solving today. And that's something that we see quite a bit of. How do I not hold myself back because I have all these legacy offerings, but I don't want to do the same things I've been doing with new technology? So solving that is really part of how we go forward for the future.
Let's talk a bit more about what you call the CTIO role, where the CTO and the CIO role are combined, and IT and network is being joined. What do you see as best operating models there, and why is that so changing the industry?
I think collaboration across those groups and making the investment go further and standardizing on a few things that helps their investments go further is really important. I also see a lot of collaboration with the CTIO across network IT, obviously because they own those areas, but also with the business. So making sure that the business requirements, what they're seeing as competitive pressures, what they're seeing as what their customers are asking for, and being able to respond to that collectively allows them to go much faster and to be much more profitable. So I think that role has now had a natural it's a naturally evolving dynamic now inside the telcos that we're seeing, and even in enterprise, where that synergy is becoming much more important as they make these decisions that really impact the business, the top line, not just the bottom line.
Let's talk a bit more about your company, Matrixx Software. How have you organized or reorganized the company? What's your operating model today?
So we have added a COO in 2020, and we've put product engineering as well as delivery and services under that COO so that we've got more collaboration across those technical functions. We also added a chief customer officer in 2020 for our Raving Fans initiatives to make sure that we have a strong process and a strong focus on that. And as a company, we meet monthly and have an operating review for half a day where we go through our key initiatives under those three priorities I mentioned earlier, and we measure ourselves in a dashboard format, in a handful of hours, but we also involve the business. So the company's invited to attend and listen to what's important, listen to the executive conversations, sometimes participate, sometimes present, sometimes own a dashboard. So it's a way for us to organize, but also then operate and execute. Execution to me is the most important thing we can be doing right now once we get set with our strategy. And then evolve that, be open to evolving that strategy as the dynamics change as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about your role. How much of your time do you spend on strategy, and how much of your time do you spend on execution?
I would say that we spend probably, me personally, I probably spend about 30% of my time on the strategy. Fortunately, I have a strong team who knows a lot about this space. So I have a very strong CTO, a very strong head of marketing. Our two co-founders are still with us. They are extremely talented and knowledgeable in this space. And so, I listen to them a lot. I provide my opinion, I have a point of view, but we collaborate on that. And then most of our time right now is spent on execution and really trying to be, as focused as we possibly can on measuring our progress against our goals. So every month we look at progress against the areas that we've identified as priorities for the company.
So are you the North Star in the company? Is that, that's what the name of one of your 3 pillars. Is that your role?
I would say that I helped with the North Star. If you read the book Raving Fans, you have to know who you are. Your customers need to know who you are against what it is they need. So expectations are always aligned, and then deliver plus 1%. Always deliver plus 1%. And so, I think I could be the North Star across all those priorities in terms of just pointing us in that direction to create those things. Yep. But it's definitely a collaborative effort. And we all have a say in the business. It's not Glo's business. This is our business. I just am fortunate enough to be sitting in this chair to represent our company to you today.
Okay, great. So Raving Fans, that's the name of the book that we all need to read.
That's right. You got to read that book. Okay. It's a good one. Good classic.
Okay, great. So Glo, how would you, you're the CEO, so you have end responsibility here in this organization. So how would you describe your management style? How do you make sure that your teams are successful?
I'd say I'm inclusive. I listen to different points of view. I value diversity and healthy debates. I think if we're not having healthy debates, we're probably not getting to the best decision. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Sometimes people lose patience with that. But I believe it's an important element of getting to the right decision for the company, for our shareholders, for our employees, for our customers. So I like as many people involved in the business as possible so that we all know where we're going. If we have to make a left or a right, everybody understands quickly why that happened and they can get on board quickly. If everything happens in a vacuum at the top, it's really hard for the rest of the company to follow along and adjust as needed. It keeps us nimble, it keeps us agile.
So that's your management style. Let's also talk about your leadership style. And maybe a good way to phrase the question is, how are you perceived as a leader? And what do you think your teams say about you when you're not around?
That's a great question. I would love to know that. One thing I've learned, my leadership style is to be very candid. I like to share more information. And what I've learned is that clear communication about what is really important versus about what could be. And when you talk about what could be, that's when people fill in the blanks, and sometimes that works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't. And people who don't know you very well or don't know me very well, just by the fact I'm a new CEO, what I learned is people don't trust easily. They don't just trust you because you're the new CEO and other people who've worked with you, like you or trust you. It's something that you have to earn, and sometimes it takes a long time. And we have an open line for anonymous feedback before every all hands, and anybody can ask any question that they want, and we try to answer every single question that we get. And it tells me a lot about how people are feeling. So my open communication style has worked for me in some cases and not for me in some cases because it was interpreted differently than how I ever intended it. And those questions tell me the kind of the pulse of the company and what's still on people's minds, what they still don't know is true. So, I'm open, I'm direct. I would say people will tell you I'm tough but fair. And, I like to bring people who know what they're doing so they can tell me what to do instead of me hiring a bunch of smart people and telling them what to do. It's a great Steve Jobs quote. So I think that's what people would tell you. And I have people that have followed me from several companies which is so incredibly flattering to me, but also what a great opportunity, because they're some of the best people I know, and we make each other successful. So I think it depends on who you talk to, when you talk to them, and how much they know me or don't know me. But I do just try to be the same person all the time, and over time, I believe that the right message will be there in the end for everyone.
So it sounds like you have your feet on the ground, you live in the facts, and you present people with what is, and that's important in an inclusive style. Now, I can imagine that you're going through growing pains as well. I mean, you're doubling the number of people in the company in a year. So what's the impact of doing that, of doubling a company in workforce?
Yes, it's a very important part of the culture right now that we are having to manage. So, you've got people who have been here for a long, long time, and there's a lot of pride in what's already been developed, which is, a phenomenal product, phenomenal company that now needs to scale. So we've pivoted with my joining. We've pivoted from being a technology-focused company to now moving into the scaling, the go-to-market, the commercial focus. As we look to scale and double the company size, we are now working with a culture that's been here for a while in some cases, and we've been adding people along the way. So you've got different tenures, and you've got different cultures joining, and now you're merging different groups together that now need to work together, and we need to go fast. So we don't have a lot of time, for people to get comfortable. They have to hit the ground running. And so the experience from the recruiting, it's all part of the process. So what's my touch point like from the very first time I even apply for a role to when I talk to Matrixx through the hiring and onboarding process? That's part of it. And then when I join a team, how hard is it to get incorporated into the culture? And in the COVID world and doing all of this virtually, it presents additional challenges. So it's an evolving culture, and I think we have to make sure we honor those who got us here, and then recognize that it's going to take more to get us there. And merging these cultures together is definitely a dynamic we're paying attention to.
Now, you were hired in this company to grow the company. I mean, you have your expertise in sales and in go-to-market. So what is it at the end of the week, at the Friday evening, when you're happy? What is it that drives you in your work?
That we made a difference, and making a difference with our employees as well as with our customers. Someone was able to launch a new service. Somebody got a great, attaboy from a customer. We won a deal. There's a lot that goes into the end of the week, me feeling good, but it's really about everybody around me feeling good, that we're winning together as a team and we're making a difference for our customers and for their customers.
Let's talk a bit more about you, Glo. You as a leader, and let's talk about your personality. So you shared with us that your MBTI profile, your Myers-Briggs personality type profile, that we use as a common thread in our leadership deep dive interviews, that you are an ISFJ. And that's called a defender, and that's somebody who is more introverted, observant, feeling and judging personality. And people with this personality type, they tend to be warm, unassuming in their own steady way. They're efficient and responsible, and they give caring attention to practical details in their daily life. So people with your profile, that tend to be the strengths are that they are supportive, reliable, patient, imaginative, observant, enthusiastic, loyal, hardworking, and good practical skills. Do you recognize yourself in that?
I do, and I don't know how could I go wrong when Beyonce has the same profile. I mean, gotta love that. If I could be in the same company as Beyonce, I got no complaints.
Well, let's talk about the I, because I always assumed that CEOs, CIOs, digital leaders, that most of them would be extroverted. Now, it's not true. I mean, it's like 50-50%, I would say. But you can't be a strong introvert and being a CEO. So how do you overcome that? How do you make sure that in an all hands meeting you're on stage and that you feel comfortable addressing your clients or your prospects or your teams?
You know, I have found that I'm not really the only introvert who appears extroverted. I think that's pretty common. And I think, you know, it's how do you feel at the end of a day after having a ton of interaction, being an extrovert? And so I need to re-energize. And so I do things that allow me to, you know, have creative thinking, whether it's a bike ride with music or going for a long walk or something where I'm just interacting with myself and in, you know, being able to re-energize and regroup. And I find that some of my best sales leaders are also introverts as well. You would never guess. So I don't know that that's so uncommon. It surprises people, right? But
yeah.
I don't think it's so uncommon.
Now, defenders, ISFJs, they have also their potential weaknesses. So people with your personality profile, they're sometimes too humble or they're shy. They can take things too personally. They can repress their feelings, overload themselves, and sometimes too reluctant to change or too altruistic. So which ones do you recognize, and how have you overcome these development points, let's call them?
Yes, I do find that I like to give recognition to others. I don't necessarily like to be the center and taking recognition for everything that happens. I think the more credit you can give to the people who are doing the work, it's better. That's just always been my approach. I do tend to also sometimes take things personally when because I care so much about what happens with the company, and so I have to remind myself that this is just how somebody feels about the information that they have, and sometimes we just have to inform people more and keep them more up to date on what's happening, because so many great things are happening. I can't imagine anybody would be, you know, feeling badly about anything. So if anybody's complaining about something, you know, I take it as my personal objective to make sure that that is cleared up as soon as possible. So there's definitely some of that in there. I wouldn't say I'm altruistic necessarily, but sometimes I do things just to pay things forward because I believe in good karma too. Things come back around, and I believe if you're consistent in who you are at every stage of the game, that in some point in the future, that will come back to be whatever it is and whoever you were all along the way. And so far it's paid off for me, because the older I get, the smaller the world gets, Hendrik. And I run into the same people I knew many, many years ago, and they have, you know, they have influence on things that are important to me. And it's good that we had the experience we did so many years ago, because on some level it built some level of trust. You know what I mean?
So you are hardworking, and you run into the danger to overload yourself. So do you recognize that? Do you sometimes work too hard, and how do you avoid that? Especially now in these days where you can work 24/7, and we go from one Zoom to the next team meeting and Teams meeting and so on. So how do you cope with that?
Yes, I wake up with the green light on. I always have, and I probably always will. So I'm ready to go, and I have to force myself to take a half an hour when I wake up and just focus on something else, allow myself to think about other things. And you know, my assistant is very good about making sure she doesn't start me too early, because I could easily start at 5:30 or 6 my time with Europe and go till 10, 11, 12 at night with Asia. And so we really try to keep those hours reasonable for everyone. And when you're working with a global team, it's the same for everybody. I feel like everybody around me is working really, really hard and many, many hours. And you know, some people I feel like they don't ever sleep. And I think, you know, long term, people can burn out. So we have actually introduced Zoom-free Fridays every other Friday. And yes, and that's been an important break for people, that, you know, we all look forward to it because you know you can get some things done, but you're not on Zoom calls all day. The other side of that is, you know, people also want to socialize. They want to have social happy hours, which can then result in another Zoom call, which I don't want to put another Zoom call in anybody's calendar. And so, you know, there's that balance as well. So I think, you know, trying to be very deliberate about taking that time for yourself. Carve out an hour for exercise, put it in the calendar. Those things to me help me stay sane, but I also have good help around me, making sure that I take the breaks that I need. So that's been really useful.
What makes you happy in your life, Glo? I mean, besides going for walks and taking some time for yourself, what is it that really makes you happy?
I have a lot of love in my life. I have a great partner. I have a wonderful family. Incredible friendships I've had over decades. That is the most rewarding part of my life. I think that people are everything. In the company as well. The relationships with the people, some I've had for decades, pay dividends in our heart and soul, and it creates an environment where it feels good to work with people every single day that you really like and that you trust and have your back and you've got their back and all those things that go into that. But I think in the end, it's all about the people, and having those relationships solid for me is it feeds me, definitely.
Okay. Let's go a little bit deeper even, and let's talk about your values. What are the values that you live by, that drive you in your life, that in the end you really stand for?
Integrity is incredibly important to me, and I could say all the buzzwords. Your word is your bond. You say you're going to do something, do it. If you say something, mean it, and walk that talk. And that's why when I go back to the other question that you asked earlier, when people don't trust from the beginning, it's hard for me because I'm a person of my word. If I say I'm going to do it, I will do it. If I say something, I'm not trying to spin the situation. I'm trying to actually tell you what's going on. And so it's hard when trust isn't already there because it's such a high value for me. But I'm learning that that's earned with the larger the organization is that you're running, that's earned over time. It's not given with some people, some trust until you're proven that you can't be trusted. So for me, just integrity, honor, your word, those things are really, really important to me.
Glo, in your professional life, in your personal life, who are your important mentors or people that you look up to or people that have guided you? Can you mention a few of them?
Yeah, sure. My parents, of course. My dad challenged me to reach beyond my grasp. He's the one that said, you must go to college. And, he put me on the right track where I could have deviated probably here and there and got distracted, my younger years. Made sure I got, the right job out of college that, was the right job. So I think getting on the right track from the beginning set me on a track that, helped me just stay focused after that. So getting me through those earlier decisions that, fork in the road here and there, I chose the right path. Thanks to my dad, showed me how to work hard and be focused. My mom has incredible business skills, great financial mind, she's still to this day, she's still doing investor club and buying stocks and trading, and she's extremely sharp and very, very sound financial mind. And I would say those are probably my biggest mentors just in my earlier years to make sure I got on the right track. As I got into my career, there were two people that really made a difference in my career. One was Dave Packer, and he was a regional leader at PeopleSoft. He took a chance on me to go into software when I had just spent all my career in hardware. I took a year off, I pivoted and went into software. Dave took a chance on me based on my leadership skills versus my knowledge of software. And it worked out really well. I had a great experience. He was rewarded for that as well. And the next one, the most recent one, is Jahangir Mohammed, who is the CEO and founder of Jasper, which is an IoT company. I was the CRO there, and it was my first startup experience after being in big companies my whole career. And he took a chance on me as well. And we killed it, and we were acquired by Cisco, and he's gone off to do some noble work, and just incredibly fortunate to have those kinds of people in my career. Okay.
Do you have a mantra in your life, Glo? A saying that helps you if you, have to make tough decisions, or what's your personal mantra?
Yes, my personal mantra is never settle.
And what does that mean?
My dad actually put it in a way, one last round turn. So, he used to work on a big ironworks project, somewhere where these bolts were human size, big giant bolts, and they would go out and they would crank these bolts. And just when you thought you got them tight, you do one more last round turn, because there's always a little bit more to do. And so, don't settle for less when you know you could get more. Don't settle just because you're out of time or you're tired or you're hungry. Go do it the right way, and don't settle for less than what you know you can get. So just go out and do that one last round turn if you can.
I'm curious, Glo, what was the best thing that ever happened to you in your life?
The best thing that ever happened to me in my life would have to be meeting my partner. And that would be absolutely the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Okay.
Yes.
And the worst thing, because that's where we learn most from. So what are the bad things that happened to you, and how did you overcome them, and what did you learn from it?
One of the worst things, I would say probably the most challenging things, but probably, as you said, the most revealing things about ourselves, is when we moved from Jamaica back to California. And going from a British school system in uniforms and having an extremely diverse set of classmates in every way, and then coming to California, going to a public school where you have to figure out what to wear and how to, get into the communities, and that's a tough age, and having to figure it out on my own without a lot of resources. That was very, very challenging. So I'd say that's probably the toughest thing that I've ever had to get through in my life. And I'll give you one example. In Jamaica, there aren't a lot of stoplights. So when you come to the States and there's stoplights and there's crosswalks and there are little boxes that say push this to walk, you don't even know what that means. So you literally stand there and you push the button to see what's supposed to happen next. And then the sign says walk. Okay, I'm supposed to walk. And you start to walk, and then it says, don't walk, don't walk. So you run back to the curb, and you think, okay, I wasn't fast enough, or I waited too long, or maybe I was supposed to push the button more times. And those kinds of things that you have to figure out on your own, those are pretty formative moments. And I had quite a few of those. It was unsettling in lots of ways, but it forced you to figure things out and how to survive really in most situations. That to me was probably the worst and the best thing, outside of meeting my partner, that happened in my life.
What do you worry about nowadays? I mean, what is it that you fear in your life? Where are your worries today?
Hendrik, I'm fearless. I don't fear anything, and I don't operate out of fear ever. And I don't make fear-based decisions. And I gut check myself to see if any decision I'm making is based out of fear. So, are there things I'm concerned about, or that I worry about, or that I spend time thinking about how we're going to solve, personally and professionally? Yes, I have aging parents. How do we make sure that they're well taken care of? Those are the things that occupy my mind more than being afraid of anything. And I didn't think a lot about this question, but it's a really good one. It's a thought-provoking one, but that's where I am today.
Okay. Glo, you had a very nice life, a very successful professional career, personal life, very successful. Out of all these experiences, what is it that you're most grateful for?
I'm really grateful that people took chances on me at some very pivotal moments in my life and in my career, which I've mentioned earlier. I'm also grateful that I was given the freedom just to live out loud as myself. So, I'm not a necessarily traditional follower of rules and norms and customs, and I was allowed to operate very freely, authentically as myself. And people took a chance on me, my family and my friends, everybody, just accepts me as who I am. And that allows me just to be the best version of myself. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had in my life.
So Glo, thank you so much for your time and this interview. Let's finish with the question, the following question. What is the advice that you would give as a successful, experienced CEO of a software company to young people that are watching these interviews and that also have the ambition to become a leader in tech space? What's your advice to them?
My advice would be to do what you love and the rest will come, and to always be kind and respectful to people, no matter the circumstance. There are tough messages that need to be delivered at times, but there is a time and a place and a respectful way to do that, as well as celebrate the things that are going well that you want people to continue to do. So, catch people doing things right and recognize those things, because that will draw more of that. That's been what I've found. But mostly do what you love and everything else will come.
And with these wise words, Glo, thank you so much for the interview. I'm looking forward to an opportunity where either you come over to Belgium or I come over to California. We can meet in person and have a beer together and chat a bit more. So thank you for sharing all your wisdom, your visions, your experiences. It was really, I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. I do the same. So I'd love to see you as well, and I look forward to that. So thank you, Hendrik.